Hello everybody, welcome back to the 1.0 Exploration series. Been a while, hasn't it? But as promised, I'm gonna be doing the area which y'all voted for, and turns out Mount Gelmir won. So we're gonna go through that, and also Volcano Manor. It wasn't too much, so I can put it all into one video. Then we'll be doing the Leyndell outskirts next time, and assuming Leyndell itself isn't too big, also that. But we shall see. But yeah, let's get right into it. The Bridge of Iniquity Grace is called the Black Scarred Bridge instead. That's the one that's right after the bridge that connects Altus to Mount Gelmir. And when I noticed that the minor Earth Tree in Mount Gelmir doesn't actually show in the map, the drawing, and neither does this bridge right here. That made me curious if there's any other ones that weren't drawn, and it looks like it's a lot of the wilted ones. For instance, the one in Caelid isn't there, but the one in Dragon Barrels is, so I don't know, it seems a little inconsistent. Maybe they added these trees later on in development. When we kill Anastasia's encounter here, she dropped the Butchering Knife, which is named the same, but in the post-release version, normally it's called the Sacred Butchering Knife, which isn't a different weapon name, it's just the affinity is different. The Golden Vow they find around here is called Earth Tree Vow, the incantation. But this made me curious to see if the Ash of War Golden Vow is the same, and yeah, it's also Earth Tree Vow, interestingly enough. The pulley bow isn't where it's supposed to be, and these 5 arrows are a little bit higher, they're supposed to be below, in the air right below this. There's also no Scavenger's Curved Sword around here. I couldn't find it. Only found the Sleep Grease. Going above this area, I noticed these Avianid soldiers holding like a magical bomb thing. And at first they thought they might be a different variant of that enemy. And I got really excited. But no, it turns out it's just a visual glitch. When they drop them, it still has like a fiery effect, just like a normal bomb. And their position is a little bit different. Here's the stock for the Mount Gelmir merchant. Funnily enough, this is where you find the Eye Surcoat instead of a Rykard's boss room, and also the prisoner's set. The volcano cave is called the Demi-Heaving Caverns. That one caught me really off guard, but pretty accurate, given the enemies that are here. And inside, the only difference I can find is that there's no coil shield. When fighting the full-grown Falling Star Beast, I noticed that they're playing our favorite dragon theme. This one in particular does have its own track, so I assume it wasn't ready or something, or maybe they hadn't decided which one goes for which. I didn't find anything different in the boss fight, but the beast jaw that it drops, I did notice that the Ash of War is a little bit slower to cast the thing. So once you thrust your weapon into the air, there's a slight delay for when the rocks come out of the ground. Which, knowing how annoying this weapon can be, maybe this is a little bit more balanced. I got a random drop from one of these Leyndell soldiers, and turns out the leather draped tabard is called leather mesh tabard in 1.0. This Wormface enemy that can spawn from a mimic kind of enemy still drops a level tier, so nothing different there, but there are so little I've found so far that I do think it's worth pointing out. I think there's around 4 that I found so far in this playthrough, so that's not a good sign. The Hereditary Spirit is also playing the dragon theme, and it normally plays the Earth Tree Avatar song, which I guess is fitting. Nothing different from the drops or anything. If there's any fans of the Hierodas Glintstone Crown, it's not here unfortunately in 1.0. And right around the corner is of course Comet Azure. But funny thing is, first of all, it actually gives you the spell instantly instead of having the animation for the hand opening the whole time. But the spell is called Dark Bolide, which definitely caught me off guard. And thankfully now that we have this, we can actually go through the rest of Sellen's questline, so we're gonna do that now. First thing I want to point out is that I noticed the Waypoint Ruined Cellar Grace is called Ruined Cellar. Making our way to the Stars of Ruin. The animation thing's the same, but the spell is called...
Pleiades.
Whenever you go get Sellen's Primal Glintstone, she actually starts screaming as soon as you activate the prompt to do so. But obviously the voice acting prompt just starts a little early. And whenever I went to give the glintstone to the new body, she didn't really react when I hit the prompt. And then a couple seconds later, she started talking without moving, so that was really creepy out of nowhere. I assumed the animation was supposed to play, and that's why there's a little bit of delay before the talk prompt comes up. Maybe it's a bug, who knows. I do want to point out too that in 1.0, you don't have to talk to Jera until this point of the questline to be able to trigger the next phase. At least down here in the shackled body. I didn't notice until now that the Grand Library is called Grand Librarium in Raya Lucaria, so there's that too. The signs for summoning are both red in this case, so if you want to be sure, just click it once and you should see who's you're going to be helping. Going into the actual invasion thing, Jaren just kind of stands at the back of the room and doesn't walk towards you until you get close. And even when you do, you need to stay close, I guess. Which something similar happened with part of Yura's questline too, so Although in this version, Sellen doesn't attack, but she can still be killed. And the evasion won't fail necessarily, so I don't know if she is supposed to attack, but it's bugged somehow, but the fact she's just still here kind of makes you think it's like it's part of the state after the fight, but who knows. After succeeding, Renala won't be hiding, she'll actually be visible whenever Sellen claims that she's gone. So it's a lot more funny even than the post-release version. And then after she meets her tragic fate, the witch's glintstone crown is called the Grana Stone Mask. So yeah, with that, that's Sellen's questline. I didn't notice anything different that I haven't mentioned really. The dialogue seem all the same to me. So moving on back to Mount Gelmir. Now we're going to cover the Seethewater River section. The Briar spells from these enemies look a little bit different. Definitely a much less polished texture and such. This enemy still drops the Prelate's Inferno Crozier, but it's called a Flame Crozier. On top of the tower, the chest right here is supposed to be empty and open, but normally you get a hint here of the loot being somewhere else in the top of the tower. But at 1.0 you don't get that at all. You just get here, there's an open chest. If you don't look around, you're not going to find the Flame Scorpion Charm. When I opened the Seethewater Caverns, which they're calling this one, I noticed that the very beginning has a few missing textures, like the shaded castle as well. Inside there's no mushroom set, so not a lot of luck for all the mushroom type clothing. And the boss here is called Kindred of Decay. Both of them are. And then when they drop their item, it's called Kindred of Decay's Exaltation, instead of Kindred of Rot's Exaltation. So I guess it's safe to say that in this game they're called Kindred of Decay, or at least some of these are. Let's check out the Gelmir's Hero's Grave. And here, this Mantis doesn't drop the Mantis Blade, or at least it's not a set drop, maybe you can farm it. This Bloodhound Knight drops the Steel Wire Torch, which was missing from Castle Morn, so I guess we found it, yay. Didn't have to lose a neat Bastion for that or anything. And right next to it, the corpse that's supposed to have the Gelmir's Knight set is empty, so another empty loot here. The Stone Chariot doesn't stop for you to mount it, so I found it almost impossible to do so. I'm sure you could if you tried it enough, but it was too obnoxious. I ended up just Bloodhound stepping all the way down. They made it stall in the post-release to be able to get on top of it more reliably. The Red Wolf of the Champion is called Champion's Red Wolf, which I guess that works. Pretty much the same name. And while I'm at it, someone did mention that the spells that it does in post-release are supposed to be like the Carrion spell glintstone things. But in 1.0 there's just the normal glintstone shard looking things. So that's a nice observation. Now before going to the Volcano Manor proper, let's get kidnapped by the Abductor Virgin to get into the kind of off part of the Volcano Manor level. Before you ask, yes, you still can do the skip to get down there. It hasn't even been patched to this day, so I assume they either don't care or it is something they intended to happen. So the Gracier is called a Subterranean Torture Chamber instead of Inquisitor Chamber. And one funny thing I noticed a long time ago is that the lava in this particular segment doesn't cause damage. I tested all the lava I could find thus far, and this is the only one that doesn't do damage. If you pan your camera a little bit below, you can see that the lava is kind of a little offset from the ground. So my working theory is that maybe the feet or the point where the lava is supposed to cause damage, but because it's a little risen over that, it doesn't. Now why it doesn't cause damage as you fall through it, I don't know, but who knows. Maybe y'all can think of another programming theory why this works like this. And everything seemed the same about the double fight, but the Inquisitor's Girandol is called Torturer's Girandol instead. Alright, now for the Volcano Manor proper. The Troll Rat at the entrance still has the Madness Frenzy attack, but the look of it is very, very different. When I enter the actual building, I notice that it's only playing the Stormveil theme, which so far 1.0 seems to just take as a generic castle theme. We've heard it a couple times before. And it's unfortunate because the Volcano Manor song is actually one of the better ambient musics, at least to my ear. So that's a little sad. Going upstairs, the Inquisitor Giza is called Torturer Giza. So I'm sure you've seen the pattern now. That Inquisitors are just a little bit of censored name, I suppose. Inquisitor is, I guess, a decent enough description of a torturer, but, you know, maybe a little bit more implied. Tenet's dialogue and everything seems the same. Didn't catch anything different. So something that was pointed out to me about the red insignia all the way back in the Lyrna video, you remember that? Which was replaced by the invitation to the Volcano Manor. Is that this symbol is actually seen in the drawing room key that you get here. Just a lot more subtle. So it definitely seems like this is some sort of symbol for the Volcano Manor. And while I'm at it, I did go through the entirety of Ria's questline. It seems pretty much the same. Same drops and everything at the end of the questline. This ghost in the corner that tells you about the Serpent Hunter, you have to get a lot closer for it to start doing its dialogue.
Someone please kill him.
In the post-release version, you can be pretty much at the end of the hall and you'll start hearing the dialogue. Small difference, but one I noticed. When you get the letters for the invasion spots, even in the description it tells you that it'll mark the map, but once you actually check it, it does not actually show you where to invade at all. Which the spots are the same as post-release, but assuming you're playing this 1.0 first playthrough, you will not know where to find these. But taking a minute to do these, Old Knight Istvan is called the Stone Knight Istvan for some reason. I killed him a little too fast, maybe I should have seen if he can do different moves or anything. But the scale armor that I dropped is called the Drake's Scale Armor instead. For the next invasion, Relay is the same, but I noticed that he can't use a crossbow. He doesn't have bolts, it seems. So he just like equips it and then starts kicking you for some reason. And since the dagger doesn't have raw or a unique attack, it's a pretty joke of a fight. He also doesn't drop the bolts after the invasion, but that's, very minor change. And lastly for now, since we have the mountaintops, Great Horn Trigoth is just called Horn Trigoth instead. And while I'm at it, I did do Patches' questline. Everything seems the same pretty much. The stock is the same as the first encounter we had, so not much to comment on there. The Depraved Perfumer's Carman Ashes is called Fallen Perfumers, just like the set we discussed in Altus as well. This pseudo illusory wall still breaks after you hit it with enough damage, which I guess makes sense since it was still in post-release. I think by now it is patched, but figure it out, check. This Bloodhound Knight doesn't drop the Bloodhound Claw, so if you like to get these for the Bloodhound step, tough luck, gotta get the actual Ash of War. The Prison Town Church Grace is called Prison Town Parish. And when coming outside to the actual proper level, it's still playing the Stormveil music, which is replaced by the Prison Town song in post-release. At the very bottom of this village, the Omen Killer does not drop a cleaver, and neither will one that we find a little bit later. At least not a set drop anyway, maybe you can farm them. But I did get one from the Altus Omen Killer plus Smeralda fight, which is kind of crazy to think you could potentially get 3 Omen Killer cleavers. But while I'm talking about this little segment, yes, the frog head is here if you so wanted. There is no Erdtree seal in the village. And around the lava segment, there's no smoldering shield either. So certainly a lot of missing items here. Going forward to the Godskin Noble fight, it seems pretty much the same. I didn't notice anything different, besides maybe the usual slightly unpolished particle effects or whatever for the Black Flame. One thing I did notice that I kind of liked though was that the charge poke attack that it does actually has like a wind effect behind it when it does it. It's kind of cool. That's not a thing in the post-release. For the second segment of the Volcano Manor level, there's actually nothing different. Only thing I noticed that there's no Dagger Talisman past the Stone Key Foggate. But that's all I can find, pretty much. So going to Rykard now. Before we actually do the fight itself, there's a couple of things for the Serpent Hunter that I need to point out. Most of the moveset seems pretty much the same from what I could tell. I feel like it might be slightly faster in some animations, but I could be wrong about that. Who knows? The one thing I do know for sure though is that the L2, the Ash of War, you can actually press and let go immediately for a quick jab, which doesn't seem that useful honestly when I actually try in a fight. It's not necessarily that much of a interesting change necessarily, but it is obviously something I wanted to point out. But even more interestingly, but maybe equally disappointingly, is that once you do the fully charged L2 once, you can't stop the second swing after the first one. So if I do the fully charged, it's always going to follow up with a second on its own. You kind of have to take my word on it, but it is how it works. So you can't do the thing you can do in some of the older patches where you can just do the first L2 to stagger, and then without doing the full follow-up, you do the L2 first swing again to stagger again. So you can't cheese it in 1.0, unfortunately. For the fight itself, God of Run Serpent seems pretty much identical. The only thing I noticed is that the lava effect is quite buggy. It seems like the lava is also offset but below the ground a little bit, so sometimes the rocks will stick out, which looks kind of bad sometimes. But getting into phase 2, you actually have a surprising name change. Instead of being Rykard Lord of Blasphemy, it's Rykard Recusant Shardbearer, which I guess is fitting. He is the leader of the Recusants as well. Likewise, the fight seems pretty much the same, so just going forward until when you kill him, he drops the Remembrance of the Recusant instead of the Remembrance of the Blasphemous. And on a similar note, the grace is called Recusant Serpent instead of Lord of Blasphemy. So yeah, I guess this has a lot more emphasis on him being the Recusant faction leader or something. Before we end though, I did try to find patches after this whole thing and do the whole Patches Tanith questline thing, but I couldn't actually find them, despite him being here bugged out in Altus before. I don't know what's up with that. I don't know if I broke that questline or something, but he's not here. I couldn't find him anywhere, so I just went ahead and killed Tanith. Now, firstly, Tanith doesn't drop her set, but a more interesting change is that Tanith's knight is called Ordovis of the Crucible, which, if you know, is actually another Crucible knight in the game. One that we should encounter in the next video, so I guess looking forward to see if that's also changed, or maybe there's somehow 2 Ordovises, who knows. However, he didn't drop the Ordovis Greatsword or anything, he just dropped the normal breath attack. Alrighty, that is all for the video. As mentioned in the beginning, next time we're going to be doing the outskirts of Leyndell, and assuming the video isn't too insanely long with Leyndell itself, we'll probably mix them both together. Perhaps I will anyway, just to do it justice, because it is an area that I know a lot of people are looking forward to. After that, it'll probably be the Shining Grounds, and then moving on to the mountaintops. So yeah, I hope you look forward to that. On other news, if you happen to miss it, I did put out a sort of retrospective of Elden Ring after a year has gone by of the game coming out, and a couple days before DLC announcement, or teaser I suppose. So definitely have to think about it and get prepared for. But I suppose if it's just a PNG that they share with us, they are kind of far away as well, so we might end up finishing this series before that comes out, who knows. But yeah, if you want to watch that video, I'll leave it at the end cards. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video and haven't caught the rest of the series, I do have a bunch of videos. I think this is the 10th one for the 1.0 series. If you think you want to see more of that and like that content, do make sure to subscribe. I certainly hope I can do Leyndell justice. I'll try my best to be as thorough as I can be. It's a big area, so I will try my best. But yeah, until then, thanks for watching. Hope to see you once again. Bye-bye.